Oh, thanks, Brian. We can hear now. Where have you been? All right.
Fabulous.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ray, are we back live? Oh. Huh? I did. Did I go back? No. But I will admit it. Will it? I will admit. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our October 24th Portsmouth Town Council meeting. Apologies for the slight delay. We did have an executive session before this meeting. Let me just quickly go through our emergency procedures. In the event of an emergency, we have two doors to your left, another door in front of council chambers here. We would exit the building and meet across the street at the school administration building and await further instruction. And if we could now all stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women serving in harm's way. United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay, thank you all. All right, back to a little bit of housekeeping. We are streaming live, so for those of you that are participating remotely, if you're on Zoom, you have the ability to raise the hand, click on the hand icon, which will indicate you have a question or a comment. If you're calling in by phone, *9 would indicate to the host that there's a question or a comment. *6 will mute and unmute your phone. For those of you participating remotely or anyone tonight that does come up to speak, please state your name and address for the town clerk. And with that, we will begin with our roll call.
Ms. Jukusa? Here. Ms. Abbott? Here. Mr. Hamilton?
Here.
Mr. Katzman?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Dr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Aguirre?
Here. Okay. I'd also like to just state, on the president's executive summary, we did have, prior to tonight's meeting, we did have an executive session under Rhode Island General Law 42, 46, 5A2, potential litigation. We did have executive session and one vote was taken during that executive session. With that, we will move on to our consent agenda.
Motion to approve as presented. Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa? Aye. Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan? And Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we'll be sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. First item on our agenda is a Class F daily liquor license, Common Fence Point Improvement Association anniversary party at 933 Anthony Road on November 12th.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa? Aye. Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have a peddler's license. It's a mobile food establishment. It's new. Yapa LLC, DBA Yagi Food Truck, 39 Rhode Island Ave, Unit 3 in Newport.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa? Aye. Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Motion to adjourn as the Board of License Commissioners. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa? Aye. Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have minutes from our September 10th meeting as well as our October 11th meeting.
Move to approve as presented. Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa? Aye. Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on, next item is tax voucher. It's request approval for tax voucher 2022 1024-01.
Motion to approve. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa? Aye. Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. And next, we'll be moving on to our town administrators report. Mr. Rayner.
Good evening, Mr. President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. There will be a Butts Hill Fort Restoration Committee cleanup on Saturday, October 29th. That's this coming Saturday from 8 to 2 p.m. The rain date will be the Sunday after, so October 30th. Parking will be available behind the tennis courts at the Portsmouth High School or on Dyer Street. The committee asked that any volunteers that do attend bring rakes, shovels, pruners, or weed whackers, but please don't park on Butt Street as that has to remain clear to allow vehicles with equipment to access the fort. Together with our contractor, PJ Keating, the town of Portsmouth won a 2021 Quality and Construction Award from the National Asphalt Pavement Association for the Fairview Lane Emergency Reconstruction earlier this year. So congratulations to our Department of Public Works and PJ Keating for their superior performance in delivering a high quality project that exceeded the highest standards of the industry.
Can we also thank East Coast Construction who did most of the pre-work?
We will thank them as well.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Without them, PJ Keating doesn't pave.
There we go. I'm also pleased to announce that our application for the fiscal year 2022 Emergency Management Performance Grant has been approved. So Portsmouth will receive $5,000 from the Rhode Island Emergency Management Agency, which we will use to support our emergency management director. Now, with regard to Melville Quarters A, this is the old Navy housing unit, which is located adjacent to Melville Elementary School. It is slated for demolition next month. The quarters will be made available for police and fire department training prior to the demolition and follow on lead paint soil remediation. The town has been working with the Navy and its housing partners to support this project, which will also be tied to the installation of the vegetative screen at the Navy Solar Farm on West Main, which, weather permitting, will begin tomorrow. Additionally, with sadness, I note the passing of one of Portsmouth's most endearing residents, Mr. Louis Escobar, perhaps better known as Mr. Portsmouth, passed away late last week. Mr. Escobar's dairy farm was named Rhode Island's Outstanding Dairy Farm of the Year in 2017. We marked that at a ceremony with the town council. His father started that farm in 1937 and he took over in 1972. And for years, the Escobar family has opened their farm to locals, visitors from out of town, and our school system. They also run a well-known bed and breakfast and the annual corn maze, as well as the annual 4th of July fireworks celebration. So I know I echo the sentiments of a grateful community when I extend our deepest sympathy to his entire family. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. Okay, moving on to old business. First item is our monthly finance report. Patrick.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. With regards to the September finance report, I just have a few items of note. So as of the end of September 2022, the town is a full quarter through fiscal year 2023. Our year-to-date general fund revenues are at 29% total budget. And our year-to-date general fund expenditures are at 25% total budget. Fiscal year 2022 audit fieldwork has completed. There are a few open items that we will support, and we'll look forward to the final report being issued later this year. And then, as noted in the previous town council meeting of 11 October, We're monitoring the real estate transfer revenue, which is currently running below budgeted amounts. And we'll evaluate the situation and provide a recommendation to the council sometime in November as appropriate. Thank you for your time, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Any questions, comments?
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa? Aye. Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, next item is request approval to enter into negotiations to extend the transfer station contract for 2 years. Mr. Rayner?
Yes, Mr. President, as directed, we approached the operator of the Headley Street Transfer Station regarding a one-year extension of the current contract, which is set to expire June 30th. The operator is unwilling to extend for 1 year and proposes a 2-year extension. So I therefore request that the council approve us to negotiate a 2-year extension of the current Headley Street Transfer Station operations contract.
So moved.
Second, so that would run us through June 30 of 2025 or
2025. So as discussed, we would sell this January an 18-month sticker that would end at the end of fiscal year 24. And that we would be back on a 1-year sticker regardless of what method we use for waste disposal in the future. But it would coincide with the fiscal year instead of a calendar year.
so we'll have a 300 something. Are we going to do a full 18 months or are you going to do a 6 month and then 12?
I was talking about that with the tax collector today. We're thinking 18 months.
Okay.
And then we would, when that ends, it'll just, that way we can order stickers that just say 2023 on it. And the guards will know that a 2023 sticker is good until we say it's not good anymore. And then the new sticker will be 2025, 2024, 2025.
Right, so just so people are aware that that sticker, that 18-month sticker is going to be in that $310 to $320 range, just.
Right,
actually
and
planning.
again, I'm not asking for.
I
this is up
understand
to the
that, but I
council
just-
to decide. This is our proposal, but we'll present that when we present the transfer station budget in November.
Understood. It needs to be communicated properly so people don't go into panic thinking they're only getting a 6-month sticker or 12-month sticker for $300 as opposed to $200.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa? Aye. Ms. Abbott?
Nay.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes 6-1. Okay. We are moving on to new business. First item is the Old Mill Lane LNG site update. Mr. Alfonso. Yeah, back up. I know we have a slide.
Yes, there should be a presentation and also with me, I have George Watson from Robinson Cole. George is coordinating all the permitting efforts, EFSB and local permitting that were.
Jacques, can you do me a favor? Just bring that microphone a little bit closer to you. You got to kind of talk right to the top of it.
Okay, is that better?
Thank you, sir.
Excellent, okay. And with me also is George Watson from Robinson Cole. George, Mr. Watson is instrumental with respect to actually all the permitting, the EFSB and local permitting that this project is going to require. Good evening, everyone in the audience. On behalf of Rhode Island Energy, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here. My name is Jacques Alfonso. I am the External Affairs Manager for the East Bay and the Quinnipiac Island area. Summarize my position, may sound different from what it was from National Grid, but I am still the account manager liaison for the town of Portsmouth with Rhode Island Energy and anything gas or electric related. So the purpose of my visit today is to provide an update on the Quinnipiac Island Gas Reliability Project. And if we go to the next slide. And I do apologize. I think a lot of this you may have seen with our past participation in past years, town council meetings, but there are two challenges facing Quinnipiac Island at this time, a capacity vulnerability and a capacity constraint issue on the gas system, capacity vulnerability with regards to disruptions on the transmission system, transmission pipeline, and also capacity constraint where there's an existing gap between the gas demand and what's actually able to be supplied during peak winter season, extreme cold situation. And just a little bit further information. Again, I know you know all this, but the Quinnipiac Island is fed from, it's at the end of the gas transmission line, the G lateral. It's like a capacity constrained lateral that it's led to the current situation with regards to the capacity vulnerability and the capacity constraint issue. So we've presented at the past few years. I believe this is probably the fourth time we presented at a town council meeting with regards to these two overall challenges. And I believe it was last November that my director actually presented the long-term solution to addressing these two challenges, which was to remain at Old Mill Lane, the property that we have at Old Mill Lane, continue the winter operations at Old Mill Lane, but with the focus of relocating the winter operations further back into the property, which again, it was presented last year, and I have a slide or two that's going to go over that a little bit. And if we go to the next slide, please. Just a little bit of recap on the project location. What you see in front of us, in front of you right now is, it's actually the town line. That's actually the northern right side is the town of Portsmouth, and the southern side is Middletown. To the left, you have Wapping Road, and then to the right towards the middle is Old Mill Lane. That somewhat triangle piece that's in green, that is the parcel of the property that Rhode Island Energy owns. It's about a 5-acre parcel. We are currently only utilizing that top right corner for our winter operations with again, a long-term solution of extending that and moving that further back into the property. There is another small parcel to the right side. That's what we call our gate station, our take station. That's the line of demarcation between Algonquin, the gas transmission line that feeds the island, and then our distribution system, the starting of our distribution system there. We've owned the property through a legacy company since the early 1960s. It became a propane peak shaving facility in the early 60s, which later was decommissioned. Ultimately, all that equipment was removed in 2014. And if you can go to the next slide, please. So what you see here right now is our proposed long-term solution. Again, if you look there, this is a zoomed in view of our property at Old Mill Lane. That top line, that is Old Mill Lane, that is the road right there. And I think last year you had two side views, our current operation and our future operation. But here again, this is our proposed long-term solution. And ultimately what we're going to be doing or trying to do, if it does get approved, is to relocate that winter operations, which currently right now be set up right parallel to Old Mill Lane, but further back into the property. Again, it's a 5-acre parcel. We're looking to utilize 1.5, 1.6 acres for this.
Can you hold on for a quick second?
Yes, sir.
Right, for some reason, the slides are not transferring onto Zoom. There you go. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to go back or is this okay?
I don't think you have to go back as far
Okay.
as where the property is, but
Okay,
kind of just go over this slide again if you don't mind.
understood. No problem.
People at home.
So what you're seeing here in front of you is a zoomed in view of the parcel of property that Rhode Island Energy owns on Old Mill Lane. It's a 5-acre parcel of property where we currently have our winter operations set up in right parallel right on the side of Old Mill Lane. And again, our long-term solution is to maintain utilizing the Old Mill Lane property, but to shift that operation further back into the property. So in kind of just describing what you see here right now is, again, we're going to be shifting the operations further back. Starting right at Old Mill Lane, we're looking to mobilize when we do need to mobilize for winter operations for emergency purposes. An office trailer right parallel to the road with a generator and I believe some facilities there for the employees. That donut shaped circles there, that is our stormwater retention basin. And that light gray area around that basin, that is a new flooring called an eco raster, which there's a slide later on in the presentation that shows a little bit better. And then again, there's actually two entrances. The one entrance to the left, pretty much it's like a horseshoe entrance and road that goes right around the property. And again, where we're shifting the operations further back into the property, to the left, those triangles, I'm sorry, those long rectangles to the left side, that's actually the Queen storage. That's where we actually store the LNG. And to the right is two of those rectangles are boosters and two other rectangles are glycol vaporizers. And the reason why there's two of each is for redundancy. It's no purpose to increase in use. It's just for redundancy purposes. And actually what we have today for operations, we only have one of each, from what I understand. The darker gray, that's going to be asphalt and paved, which then would requires and results in an additional basin to the south of the property there. And again, looking back on the overall property to the right side, that's our take station. And again, that's it's actually two parcels there. One is owned by Enbridge Algonquin and the other parcel is owned by Rhode Island Energy. And then next slide, please. And as I mentioned before, if we get approval and the if is the approval is ultimately under the jurisdiction of the Energy Facility Siting Board, the EFSB. It's a licensing and permitting authority for siting, construction, alterations of major energy facilities in Rhode Island. They actually have a great website that actually tracks and documents all our filings, our siting plans, pretty much everything that you see here that we've presented and testified. It's all documented on the website. It's a great website to see. It is ripuc.ri.gov. If you go to that website and you scroll down to and you'll see a section for EFSB. If you select that and then look for the docket for this this project we're proposing is SB 2021-04. Again, if you go there, all the documentation is there. It's a great site. A little bit of the top bullets is just a little bit of recap of kind of what's taking place with the FSB to date. Up until recently, the last thing that occurred was a preliminary hearing on July 25th of 2022. That's when our principal engineer provided a detailed analysis and review of that long-term solution, that previous slide that you saw. But actually most recent was just last week, the FSB actually issued a preliminary decision in order on October 19th, which is requesting advisory opinions from various stakeholders, state and municipal participants of this overall effort across Rhode Island. And I've listed here and specifically what's asked for an advisory opinion from the town of Portsmouth, which is the zoning board, building inspector, DPW, planning board, and town council. And just so you're aware, and Mr. Watson will correct me, if I'm not mistaken, I believe last week we've actually submitted our application for a special use permit to the zoning board and the planning board. We've already started coordinating with the DPW department, the director, to visit the site and observe as equipment gets delivered, traffic impacts, road impacts. And I believe our environmental department has already submitted a soil and erosion and sediment control ordinance or application to the building inspector. So a lot of this communication, a lot of this applications has already started with the town of Portsmouth. But again, just taking a step back, the FSB is looking for advisory opinion on each one of those municipal departments for Portsmouth. And then next slide, please. So I've kind of been focusing on the long-term solution, but what I have in front of you today is some of our short-term improvements to the current location and winter operations when utilizing Old Mill Lane. Since late summer, early fall, there's been a lot of activity at Old Mill Lane with our project team installing eco rasters. It's a pervious surface that allows water to drain into the ground. That's something that's pretty much completely, it's been installed for the most part, just the two sections we have to go back and finish up. And then also we've started the process of installing an 8-foot fence along the property. It's going to be a chain link fence along the sides and the back of the property. And it's going to be a solid wall with aluminum sliding doors and gates, sliding gates along Old Mill Lane itself. That installation, I believe, just started recently, and it should be completed in the foreseeable future, very near future. And the next slide, please. And the last slide I have for you today, it's just going to give an overview of where we are with our winter operations to date. Typically, in the last few years, our winter operations, it's setting up Old Mill Lane for the winter operations. Typically starts in November, lasts approximately 2 weeks. The goal is to have everything set up and operational by December 1st, at the start of the winter season. and concluding at the end of March. And then in April 1st is when we start demobilizing the site, removing all the equipment, and that usually takes 2 weeks. This year is a little bit different. With regards to, we did receive notification from Enbridge, Algonquin, that they are going to be performing a multi-day inspection of their gas line actually on the island itself. That should be occurring next week, actually on the 31st. It may shift weather depending. So that is why actually we've been in the process since last week of setting up our winter operations for Old Mill Lane, or setting up Old Mill Lane to be ahead of that upcoming inspection by Algonquin. That setup should be done by the end of this week with testing of the equipment in preparation and in time for their inspection starting next Monday, next week. Based on the results of their inspection of their gas line, of their transmission line, we may have to operate. But if not, hopefully we got the go ahead that everything is clear. What we are going to do is we are going to leave the equipment in place, so we don't have to remobilize in just a few weeks. But we are going to inject whatever LNG we do have on the property after the Algonquin inspection is done into the system. So the equipment will stay, but there will be no LNG on the property up until we restart mobilizing in November to be operational and ready for December 1st. Again, when there's just equipment, we have security on property 24/7. When there's product, that's when we have our contracted and our Rhode Island LNG employees on site. I believe municipal officials have been notified, first responders. I've actually coordinated site visits with the fire chiefs of Portsmouth and Middletown for end of this week. Testing should occur end of this week. And again, hopefully it'll be a quiet season or a quieter season. One of the things that we've tried to do for this season is we have our vapor recovery system installed and ready to go. That should eliminate some of the noise some of the abutters have heard throughout the winter seasons of the venting. We've also tried to procure quieter equipment this season, so hopefully we'll see a difference this season. But again, that's where we are. And I do apologize. I think every picture I've had of Old Mill Lane has been the reverse of what you're seeing there, but that does show a picture of the take station, gate station to the left side, and then our normal winter operations of what we've seen the last few years right there on the right side, right along Old Mill Lane. And again, and connecting back to the long-term project, we are looking hopefully to get the approval to shift that operation further back into the property, which should mitigate a lot of the noise concerns, lighting concerns, and just the aesthetics of the overall operation. So that is an update. The update that I have. I believe there's also another request to provide an update. Actually, I'll just provide the update now. At the end of September, we were contacted by Enbridge Algonquin. They indicated to us, and we met with them, that they actually have a project, a maintenance project planned for their gas transmission line that actually connects the mainland to the island. They're actually looking to replace that line within the next 2 years. So we met with them. They gave us the update at that time. After that meeting, we actually provided an update to the FSB. They asked for more information, which is, I believe, one of the correspondence in the agenda. That's one of the letters that the municipality, the FSB, received for that project. If they do go forward with that project, it will take 120 to 150 days to complete. And it is something that hopefully, I don't believe it's been finalized yet. It's not it's not a Rhode Island Energy project. It's an Algonquin project. So we're waiting to hear back from them to see their final details of that project. But in the letter that we submitted to the FSB and the municipalities received, their project will not resolve the challenges and the issues of the capacity vulnerability and the capacity constraints that are currently facing the island right now. They're only replacing for maintenance purposes a 1.1, a 1 mile section of that transmission line, where that overall challenging end of the line G lateral vulnerable section is 4 miles long. So they're only focused on that 1 mile section crossing the Seconic River. And there are also no plans, and we asked directly if there are any plans to install an additional line. There's no plans. Their purpose of their project is to solely replace that 1.1 mile section of gas transmission line. So, and I apologize, I didn't have a slide for that, but that I think covers the update that I was asked to cover. But free to answer any questions. Hopefully I have the answers. And if not, hopefully Mr. Watson can help out.
Thank you for the update, Mr. Alfonso. I just want to kind of calibrate a few things and clarify because there may be some questions.
Sure.
If we could go back to the slide that had the town approvals. There was a slide that showed zoning board, building inspector.
Yeah, the EFSB slide.
Yes. Yeah, just go back.
One more.
Yeah. Okay, so just so that everyone's aware, the advisory opinions, the town has to render their advisory opinions by April 5th, 2023. So we have a 6-month window to hear the applications and render a decision. In addition to these items, you will also be going before DEM for an environmental permit, and you will also be going to Rhode Island Historic Preservation and Historic Commission. So you still need their approvals in as well as what's coming in from the town.
Well, there were, the FSB had requested advisory opinions from them, approvals or.
I'm sorry,
applications that are
advisory
not-
opinions.
Correct, yes.
They, and again, that's the other thing is typically our boards render decisions. We're just rendering advisory opinions. So you'd go through the same process, the zoning board process, the planning board process, but their decision is really just an advisory opinion to the EFSB. Is that correct?
That is correct, George, unless I.
Is that's our interpretation? So with that being said, tonight is not a hearing. Tonight is just an update. You will be going before each of the respective boards. There'll be proper notice for public input at those hearings.
Yes, sir. And you'll be seeing a lot more of me and Mr. Watson at
Okay.
those meetings. Yes.
And you mentioned that those have already been submitted, so there's potentially the opportunity that those will be on the dockets for the planning board and zoning board, probably in early December, January timeframe.
They were just submitted last week, but I believe that was some of the discussions that it potentially be in December, would be on the agenda.
Okay, so then I guess the question or clarification that's probably going to come up or get asked. If you're going for a special use permit, and typically special use permit will cover noise, smoke, odor. I'm just trying to connect the dots with noise. Special use permit covers noise, but then you also have potentially a noise variance or a noise ordinance for the council. If you need to come before the council, will you be submitting something? You'll be submitting something separate to the council? Are you waiting to after you get to the zoning board? Or what is the plan for council? All I'm thinking about is our April 5th timing. That's all.
George Watson, Attorney Robinson Cole. We are planning to submit the town council application for a noise variance, if not this week, next week.
Oh, okay.
And so it's, there's still some research to be done as well. As Mr. Alfonso mentioned, we have new equipment this year. And that equipment is yet to be measured. So we're not sure if we even need a noise variance, but
No, fair enough.
But due to the timing of it, we're not gonna have a chance to measure it before the April 5th deadline, or at least there's not enough time to compile all that information. So we're just gonna proceed with the measurements that were taken before, which showed exceedances on the one property. So we will be, as you mentioned, you'll be seeing us again with experts and stuff in hand for that application.
Do you anticipate that same noise issue will be presented at the zoning board hearings as well for special use?
Yes, no, it's, you know, it's.
I know it might be redundant, but at least if someone's not able to attend zoning board, the noise variance does come before the council.
Right, and we are staying out in front of the fact of the operation. One of the things Mr. Alfonso didn't mention is that they changed the operation of the facility too, where they're not running it as often at night. This past winter, they ran it 10 times at night. And by running it, I mean, it's in standby where it will cycle through a heating cycle 2 to 3 times for 15 minutes. And so they've changed their operation to limit those impacts.
And I don't want to put you on the spot tonight. I mean, tonight's not the hearing and I just
Mhm.
wanted, tonight is just for information. But I want to let the residents know that, there will be an appropriate time and place to actually be able to participate and maybe have additional information to review and comment on during an actual hearing.
Right. I would add, there's also, in addition to the opportunities at the various local proceedings, the EFSB will also have a public comment hearing. That will be after the advisory opinions are due.
Okay.
And that will be here in Portsmouth.
And so that the EFSB hearing would be after April 5th?
I believe it will be after April 5th. It will be noticed. So it'll be updated on the webpage as well, but it's typically done after, just so you have a chance to respond to other comments.
Excellent. Thank you. Any further, Mr. Hamilton?
Just to clarify, you said that the meeting would be here in Portsmouth for the Facility Siting Board?
Yes, one of the requirements is that you have to have a public hearing in every location where the facility is located. So this being located in Portsmouth, they will have a public hearing here at night.
And I guess this will go to Jacques, but the new quieter, quote unquote, equipment is going to be installed for this heating season. So we will have the ability to have some experience as to what that noise level is prior, well, Mr. Robinson said he wants to come in a week or two to the council to talk about a noise variance, but you're going to put in quieter equipment. So you don't know if you need that noise variance. I'm wondering why we're coming so early and we can't wait till the first meeting in January to discuss a noise variance. And have some time under our belts to see if the new quieter equipment is working.
Well, I think we would still want the variance, just to give a layout. What the company has operated in the past is a ambient vaporizer, which is a backup vaporizer that's never been used. And they've had the current vaporizer, which is used as a glycol heating vaporizer. That one will still be there, but they have another glycol vaporizer that they're bringing on site, which is newer and quieter. And that's the one they're going to run primary, with the one that was previously used will be in the backup role that the ambient one used to be in. So in the event of an emergency and they're on the backup generator, or that backup vaporizer, excuse me, they would still have that noise exceedance. So it may make sense to just have the hearing, assuming the worst, since that vaporizer is a worst case scenario for noise generation.
I've already stated this before, but I don't think this is a good long-term solution. The best long-term solution is to bring another pipeline onto the northern or the western side of the island and loop the system together. We're not solving any issues. We're creating a nuisance where we don't need to. Obviously, neither one of you can fix this because you're not the pipeline company. But I believe Rhode Island Energy can work with Enbridge, Algonquin, whatever they are now, to figure out a solution to not only loop in the island, but it would make sense to me to loop across to Bristol and loop in that system as well. This is not a long-term solution. We shouldn't be having a LN2 facility in a residential neighborhood of this size. That's my opinion. That's where I stand. I know this won't have that thought process won't pass this council, but we need a better solution long-term. I've already discussed it with people in Middletown and Newport, and that's their thought process as well. And as we go forward in terms of this pipeline, I'm sure obviously you guys are aware of the impending potential line of up to 6 cables from the wind turbines coming up over the top of that pipeline. That's a huge concern of mine. If that pipeline gets broken, you can't have enough trucks down there.
I was just gonna say, and for that project, that offshore wind project, we did connect the Algonquin Enbridge company with the company that's actually working on those electric transmission lines.
Currently
No,
Mayflower.
Yes, sir. And I've in preparation for this meeting, I went back and looked at the last few town council meetings, and your message has been consistent and clear this whole time. So I'll definitely take that back to Rhode Island Energy leadership. Again, we're going to have a lot more opportunities to discuss this in more detail, answer a lot more questions. But again, loud and clear.
Okay, I just want to, I appreciate the update. If there's no more questions from councils, I just want to see if there's anybody that has some questions or comments.
Good evening. My name's Stephen McDonald. I live at 124 Old Mill Lane. I'd like to give, thank you, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to discuss the noise issue. And that's what I'm going to discuss is the noise issue if you have no objections.
Well, it's not that I have no objections, but tonight's not the hearing.
I
So,
know
I mean, really,
here's a
we're gonna
problem.
you're gonna come back and if we actually have a noise variance hearing, that's your opportunity. Because
Well-
tonight is.
Can I say something about the noise variance, please?
Sure.
They had been directed by their own papers, so to speak, what they have been told in their own report to the Rhode Island Commission, the board there that sorry, yeah, the EFSB, there we go, the EFSB, the board. 2 times they had been told by their own report that they should have been filing a variance for noise and they do not meet the standards. That's really the bottom line. They've been pulling this nonsense for 3 years. This is going on the 4th year that we're going to have to put up with it. I have all the respect in the world for Mr. Alfonso because quite frankly, he has done everything he possibly could to try to mitigate the noise. But he is like me when I was working, a mid-level employee who doesn't make decisions. Last year or 2 years ago, February 2020, we had some serious noise issue. The first person that I contacted was Mr. Rainier, our town administrator. Had a wonderful conversation with him. He's the one that put me in touch with Mr. Alfonso. I since then have had numerous conversations with Mr. Alfonso. We have never been able to get the noise issue under the decibel reading level, which is 55 during the nighttime, 65 dB during daytime. Last year, for the first time, I said to myself, actually, my wife said to me, you need to start calling the police. The police were very good, but the problem when you call the police department is that you can't call them in advance. You have to wait for the noise, then you call them. Then if they don't have something going on, then they come out. You do that several times and you finally realize, guess what? The police have got other things that are, well, probably more important in their mind. Did they come out? They always came out, but they were never able to come out at the time that was there for when the noise was there. They don't mention that they had a piece of equipment on my property last year monitoring the noise. It was 69 dB. That was last January. Their equipment, not my equipment, their equipment. They should have gone for a noise variance last year or even last April, this past April, when the last report came out. But did they do that? No. They've been stretching this on, stretching this on, stretching this on. So what I really need, and really, if you get that I'm frustrated, I am. What I really need is for the town to say to the police department, when they get ready to activate, go down there, take your reading. If it's over 55 during the nighttime or 65 during the daytime, give them a fine. That's the only way this company's going to learn. Because if you don't do that, they're going to come back next year and say, well, we're trying. They're not trying hard enough. This company made $118 million the second quarter. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Mr. McDonald, I do sense your passion. If they come before us and request a variance, if the variance is not granted, then they're not able to exceed the reading.
But they can
So,
do it right now.
well, we're trying to come to terms with that, but I think as you mentioned, and I think they've even provided the testimony, if when the machine goes off, it goes off for a short period of time. No, just let me finish. I know you're gonna blow up, so just.
No, I'm not blowing
Oh, you
up.
are? No, I can sense it. The piece of equipment goes off, the noise goes off for 10, 15 minutes, whatever it might be, and then it stops. So you're right. By the time the police get down there, the noise is gone. So maybe that's something we can try to work through with them in advance if we know the operation's going to occur. But I think they've clearly stated tonight, and they're hearing you as well, that they're going to be coming before the town for a noise variance. So I would encourage you at the variance hearings to be present at that point, because that's when everything is on the record. And I'm going to need you to say it all over again at the hearing.
I'll say it every week if I have to. It doesn't matter to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Council, Lawrence Sylvia, 24 Old Mill Lane. I've been watching this for a long time. And basically, they're running this show as if they don't need permission. The last 6 to 8 weeks, they've had so many people working down there. I'm not talking about a half a dozen or 10. They've had a lot of people working down there. They had enough people to build a 4-story house. That's going on every day. They've blocked one lane. They had the police down there. And they just continue building. Nobody says you can do anything, but they're going to put it in anyway. That's what's going on. And tonight, when I drove out of my driveway, I looked east and it looked like there was a small city there with the lights. That's what they're building. Thank you.
Further questions, comments? Okay. Again. Mr. Alphonse?
Jacques Alfonso, Rhode Island Energy. I don't think I have to repeat who I am, but for this current setup for the Algonquin inspection, daily inspection, we are going to be testing the equipment. I believe it's going to be either Friday or Saturday. So I can coordinate with Mr. Rayner, provide more details. If the police department would want to go out there and take readings, I could help coordinate that if possible.
I mean, it would be great to get some additional baseline information. I'm sure you're hearing the concerns as well.
Yes.
And again, this is a process. You are entitled to ask. You are going to be going before the different boards for the advisory opinion. Ultimately, the town will be providing advisory opinions to the EFSB. Right. It's going to be up to the EFSB. The EFBs could agree or disagree. They're the ones that have the final say in the process. But again, there will also be a public hearing here with the EFSB. So this is one of the things that we're going to have to stay engaged with, involved with, and make sure that we're as stewards of the community, residents in the area. Those are your opportunities. Where you're looking for the input. A lot of times it's abutters and interested parties that are going to be getting the notifications for planning and zoning because it's isolated to those areas. So, this is the kind of thing we just have to be aware of and stay on top of and try to coordinate, communicate, and come up with a good plan for down there. I mean, yes, it's encouraging for the new equipment. If it's quieter, silent, that all those things are favorable. There's been lots of discussion about this, how long this could be down there. We know it's a long-term solution. We know you're trying to do things to mitigate the noise. But for some of the residents that have been down there for a long time, they're just looking for something a little quicker because they're the ones that are impacted the most. And so we appreciate the update tonight and look forward to the additional, communication and coordination. And appreciate the heads up for this next round of testing.
Yes, and I'll email Mr. Rayner once I confirm the date on that, and there should be another testing date once we set up for the December 1st, being prepared for the actual winter operations. So I think there may be two opportunities there for the local police department to coordinate with us to be out there for the municipality to take their own readings. And there's, I think Mr. Watson helped me by providing additional information. There's a lot more details and information that I'm sure Mr. McDonald and the neighbors want to share and that we have provided. And to your point, you're correct. All those details, all that information will be coming out with the subsequent open meetings and so forth and the permit application process itself. So a lot more discussions to have. A lot more.
Mr. President. I just have one question. In response to Mr. McDonald's statements, Mr. Rayner, will the town have the appropriate people at the test sites to monitor the equipment properly?
Sure. We'll notify both the police and we can talk to our on-call engineers to make sure we have people with the right equipment there to measure the sound when the testing's done.
Thank you.
It just question/suggestion. So the quote, long-term solution is going to be about 150, 200 feet away from where the current solution is, give or take.
I don't know the exact distance, further back.
It's further back.
Further back, much further back.
And sound dissipates over time.
And we also are going to be installing, I know I didn't point it out on the sketch there, the long-term solution sketch, but we are installing sound attenuation walls that are going to be installed and removed during the operations.
Is it possible to, once we have a baseline of what the new equipment is going to sound like, to run a test at what you hope to be your permanent solution? My hope is it's not there, but to run a test of something that can make about that same level of sound to see if it dissipates, so that if it is 65 at your equipment, it's not 65 at the neighbors' houses.
I can definitely take that back to the project team. To actually duplicate that with equipment further back there, I don't even think we can access that property as it is right now. With it being
machete and-
wetlands, but again, George.
We did that in the current siding report. And so the siding report used the measurements of the current equipment and then took the proposed layout and then projected where those sound levels would be as they left the property. We do plan on repeating that effort with the new measurements.
At the future location?
Yeah, so I mean, we're, again, it's projection now.
Mhm.
So but we do plan on repeating that effort of estimating the sound projection using the new equipment at the new layout.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions? Sure.
So I'm Laurie McDonald. I live on Old Mill Lane in Portsmouth. I have read Mr. Cole's report. I have read that based on their new projections, they do not think that the sound will be mitigated. And as a result of this, they may possibly buy out, I think it's 11 properties. So they kind of know that this equipment is not going to work. And I think nobody's really talking about that. And they also have a lot of rights on a lot of those properties to begin with, as far as pipelines and whatnot go, which they were granted in the 1950s. So I think the council also needs to look at, that part of it too. Well, say they can't find a solution and they're going to buy all these properties. You're looking at them all of a sudden having 30 acres out there. So just something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Okay, so we don't need to take any action. This was just an update. The next item on our agenda is request approval of proclamation to declare October 21st through November 4th, 2022 National Veterans Small Business Week.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Okay. Next is our proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 budget timeline. Mr. Rand?
Well, it always feels like we just did this. But we're here again. So what I've submitted to you for your review and approval is the proposed milestone dates for the preparation, submittal and approval of the fiscal year 23-24 budget.
Motion to approve it as presented. Very good.
I'll second, but I'll defer to my honorable colleagues that may be returned.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa? Aye. Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson? Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Next, item number 4, it's a request to reject bids and cancel the RFP for the replacement of the Mill Creek culvert. Mr. Woodhead?
Council President, members of the council, the town went out to advertise for the replacement of the Mill Creek culvert on August 30th, 2022. We had 2 bidders when the bids closed on September 30th, 2022. The first one was Manafort Brothers for $1,840,721.73. And then East Coast Construction for $1,418,815. Public Works reviewed the bids with Jamie Pisano from the engineering company VHB, who drew up the plans. We did expect these bids to come in around 1.5 to about $2 million. The cost increase was due to the geotechnical design for the pile supports for the twin culverts. When we did the geotechnical test holes, it revealed that the soil below the proposed culverts could settle up to 3 inches, and that's why they proposed the culverts to be pile supported. And this is what drove up the cost of the project. VHB did want to note that in their letter that Rhode Island DOT design manual indicates that cross culverts should be designed with a 50-year storm event. Following analysis of the stream and the existing conditions, the twin culverts, the 6x9 culverts, were designed to handle only for a 5-year storm. Which provided the best hydraulic performance and ecological connectivity with impacting properties. Improving the culverts and the roadway beyond the 5-year event would negatively impact the flooding to the house at 1212 Narragansett Ave. NBNER are prepared in support of the grant that we received from DEM, the Office of Water Resource, for $433,200. We met with them on different occasions, and they felt that the design would not provide a benefit they saw when preparing the grant. But this was the best hydraulic performance and ecological connectivity that without impacting the properties. So with that being said, the town would be responsible for the additional cost of $1 million in the design that could not be developed for a 50-year storm event without impacting abutting properties. And the perception that the proposed design would not provide the benefits NBNERR originally sought. So we would like to request the town council reject both bids and cancel the request for the proposal, the RFP for the replacement of Mill Creek.
So what would be our next step to go out and try and look for? I mean, if we can't do a 50-year thing and we're gonna impact somebody's property, and we can't do a 5-year thing, is there a 25-year plan that we could go into and start looking for grant money for this?
I think we could start looking for grant money. I think the problem that we might run across when we try to apply for grant money is that they're gonna want a 50-year culvert. And that we can't design a 50-year culvert for that location because it's so close to the shoreline. I mean, the culvert right now is not a problem. It is just an improvement that, you know, the NB, let me get this one, NBNERR wanted to present to us. So I think we could probably put it on hold. We still have the plans, we still have the drawings, we still have the permitting for another, I think it's 2 years that the permits are good for, so we can still look out, maybe see if we can get another grant.
How long is the current grant good for?
The current grant right now, we had an extension. I can ask Sean McDonald from DEM how much longer it's gonna be good for. I think it's good till 2023.
So, Mr. Woodhead, you brought up a good point. That part of the problem is just, is really the maintenance that's necessary. The culvert works fine. The problem is when you get a storm, high tide and everything kind of converges, that's when you have the potential for backing up and causing the flooding. So I think if we are just a little bit, proactive and trying to keep the area clean as
And
best we can.
And we are.
Yeah, that will buy us some time while we try to find some additional funding.
Okay.
But I would agree, we probably need to look for additional sources, and see what other options, there might be something else that comes up that we're not, considering at the moment, but it is that is a very tough spot with the abutting property.
Would this fall underneath the resiliency grants and SNAP programs?
It's possible, that we could look to those areas, for additional funding. I guess the big question will be timing and how quickly we can access some of that funding. We might be able to get the permits extended and the grant extended, and then just try to supplement with some resiliency money.
This is my third grant extension with DEM. I don't want to keep going back there.
And this is an all or nothing project. It's nothing, we can't do it in stages.
No,
I know.
So
One
we
and
need all
done.
the funding in place to do it. So you need a motion to rescind the RFPs for the Mill Creek Culvert project.
Yeah.
And reject the bids.
Second.
all those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes
Thank you.
7-0. On to correspondence.
Motion to receive and place on file, since we've already talked about both of them. Seconds.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Future meetings, November 14th. will be our
Hang
next-
on a quick second. Yeah, I'm sorry, we missed, Miss Pat Rossi has her hand up. Sure, she wants to say something about the culvert project that we skipped
Oh.
over already.
Why is it not showing?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sorry about
All
that.
right. I'm sorry. I had my hand up before you guys made the vote, but
Sorry.
so
Pat.
anyways, my question is there a plan B? And I did hear that you want to investigate it more, which is wonderful. However, you also have to realize that this area is very low. And yeah, it's the stormwater that comes in, but when we have a major storm with rain, you have an abundance of fresh water trying to go out of this culvert at the same time that the bay is trying to come into the culvert. So not only is the salt water intruding on our fresh water supply, it is now bubbling through the culvert and the roadway, although it's a new roadway, and so far it hasn't bubbled through, it's going over it. And with king tides, it's always up to it on whenever they're there. So your time frame is not really 2 years, because you have a beautiful new road that's just going to be washed away. Salt water is coming into our freshwater system, which in a drought, you can only imagine where our water levels are. You know what Portsmouth is like. So I wanted to know if the town would go back to NEBRE, which is at NEBRE, and discuss an alternative, because I have heard through their meetings of other plans, and I'm not going to speak to those plans, but there is one that definitely sounds like it would work for our aquifer solution. and for the road's longevity. So I'm asking that the town work in conjunction with them and maybe come up with a new plan if this one's not going to work. And I never thought this one would, because that road's too low. As it is, the town mowed down some of the shrubbery on the beach. So now the water can go right by, which they admit was a mistake, but it's done and it's over. So that is my 2 cents.
Okay, well, just if we could back up a little bit. We needed to reject the bids because we can't move forward. So that we have to do. But I think we discussed continuing to look for a solution, and I'm not aware of what you're referring to with an alternate solution, but we will absolutely look to see what the next possible alternatives are. But I think we have to get back with our consultant, VHB, and kind of reassess things to see what the next step could be.
Well, just for at this culvert location, I don't know if Pat's talking about a different location for this, but at this location at Mill Creek,
We were raising them.
we're raising it up 1.5 feet. We cannot raise it up any higher than that, or we're going to be flooding out neighbor properties. And CRMC will not give us permits because we'll be discharging water onto other people's property. So that's our limitation right now. I mean, we can find out if we can work with NEMB, whatever
Yeah.
she calls them, and see what they have different locations for that. I mean, I'm more than happy to work with anybody we can.
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to investigate the area and see what could be a potential solution. But yeah, it's not a done deal.
Well, I thank you. And Brian, if you could just reach out to them with your engineers, hopefully a solution will come up sooner than later that works with everybody. Thank you.
Okay. So back to the future meetings, November 14th, November 28th, and then December 12th. And as Mr. Kelly stated, the council will be, probably there'll be a different council at some point here looking towards November 28th or December 12th.
Mr.
Because-
President,
Yeah.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar?
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Thank you all. Good luck, everybody.